world of cable news screaming and social media echo chambers, it's easy to lose the signal in the noise. Every day, policy is debated, votes are cast, and your tax dollars are spent. We cut through the headlines to bring you the critical context you need, focusing on what's really going on in news and politics. Welcome to the Analytical Iowan Podcast. This is your daily dose of fact-driven politics. Let's analyze today's news. Here's Eric.
We are back here on the Analytical Iowan Podcast. It is Thursday, May 7th, as I am recording this. And unfortunately, again, getting to this much later in the day than I had planned. Hopefully, I know the next couple days aren't going to be great, but maybe by next week I can get back around to being recording ahead of time. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Appreciate everybody for sticking it out as I'm still fighting this weird problem with Zoom. So I'm just going to keep recording every day, and I post what's available. And even if it's a couple days old, there's still some good information there. So I appreciate you guys following along and watching the content I do get out there. Wasn't able to get any TikToks out tonight with my work schedule. Thought I might get some out midday. Thought I was going to have time ahead to record, and I couldn't do it. The day just did not cooperate with me. Next thing I knew I was going to have an off schedule with work. Thought I was going to be able to record, and with things I had going on, other phone calls and things I had to do, I just couldn't get there. That's the problem with having to do and hold down a job on top of handling day-to-day life and trying to record content. It's not all easy. I would, like I said before, would love to make this a full-time gig. But I'm not making anything doing this. I'm taking the time to make the content because you guys appreciate it. I see the comments on YouTube. I see the comments on TikTok when my content gets views on TikTok. But I see the comments, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to watch, comment, share, all of that. I do appreciate all of it. And that's why I'm doing it right now. Eventually, if I do get paid, I do get enough money doing this to where it becomes a full-time gig, I would love that. But right now, this is just about getting the information out and helping us work through these very trying times with the current administration and everything that we have going on. Now, got a small list of articles to go through. And I'm going to be reading from multiple articles here as we go. And I didn't have a lot of time to read these ahead, so I'm going to be reading and going off as I go here. So let's get into it. Now, Senator Peter Welch of Vermont and Representative Dave Min of California on Thursday today sent letters to 17 people who received pardons or commutations from President Trump asking whether the president granted them leniency in pay-for-play circumstances. This is coming from The Hill. Lawmakers said individuals got clemency under suspicious circumstances, according to a list of recipients. Some who received pardons had donated to Trump's campaign, such as Trevor Milton, founder and former CEO of Nikola Corporation. Milton was convicted in 2023 of securities fraud and wire fraud, and federal prosecutors sought roughly $661 million in restitution. Milton and his wife, the list notes, donated $1.8 million to Trump's 2024 campaign fund. He was pardoned in 2025. The president also pardoned Changpeng Zhao, founder of cryptocurrency exchange Binance, in October 2025. Remember, Donald Trump, after pardoning him, had no idea who he was or what he had done. I think he was just given a list to pardon. He had pled guilty in 2023 for violating anti-money laundering laws and served some months in prison. Democrats asked for details of the circumstances of their bids for clemency, including whether they retained, consulted with an attorney or lobbyist, or whether they or others affiliated with them communicated with the Trump administration, or whether they or others affiliated with them donated to Trump's campaign and related organizations. They were told to provide answers by May 22nd. Now, the White House has responded, told The Hill Trump exercised his constitutional authority in issuing the pardons and commutations, and of course did what the administration always does, turned it to Biden. She criticized former President Biden for pardoning his son Hunter Biden and other family members before leaving office. Let's talk about that, okay? Before leaving office, Joe Biden, I'm having trouble tonight. I'll get there though. Joe Biden had issued pardons to, yes, Hunter Biden, some other family members, and other related people for any offenses they may have had. Now, that seems a little weird. Why would he do that? Well, it is the president's prerogative to issue pardons, yes. But do you know what we'd be hearing about right now if Joe Biden hadn't done that? We are on day 470, roughly. I don't know, I'm guessing here. But we're well past almost 15 months of this administration, right? And we'd be on 15 months plus of the Hunter Biden trial. They would be doing nothing but hearing after hearing on Hunter Biden. They'd be calling in experts. They'd be trying to call all of Biden's family in to testify. Why? Because they have nothing else. And Donald Trump wants retribution. He wants to go after his political enemies. He does. Joe Biden only gave those pardons not because they committed crimes, but to protect them from getting investigated from now until eternity. The Republicans had already said as much. They had spent 2 years in the House of Representatives under Biden investigating Hunter Biden. They went after him for charges that a normal person would not have ever faced. Lying on a gun form. Most people would never have had those charges, period. It's the charge that they tack on, right? When they go looking for other things, when they can figure out a way to tack another charge into what they're doing. Most people wouldn't ever face that kind of prosecution. But Hunter Biden did. He was investigated for 2 full years for nothing. But they were trying to get sound bites. They were trying to get testimony. They were trying to get anything they could use against Joe Biden to make Joe Biden look bad going into the 2024 election. Now, they kind of dropped things off when Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race. But it was all about discrediting Joe Biden and letting Donald Trump win again. It was all about making and embarrassing Joe Biden because how dare he beat the Republican Lord and Savior Donald Trump? How dare he? Well, here we are. Okay. Here we are. We're in 2026 now. Joe Biden had to pardon his son and other family members to keep them from being investigated because that's all the House would have gotten done. They've barely done anything so far. What have they passed? What meaningful legislation has passed the House of Representatives or Congress in general for that matter? I can think of two things. That one big bullshit bill that hurts more people than it helps and makes sure the rich people get more fucking money. They passed that. They barely passed funding to keep the government open, and they passed the Epstein File Release Act, which this administration is thumbing its nose at and saying, "Fuck that! I don't have to release the information. We've given you enough." Despite the fact that the law that they passed with all but one vote in Congress saying no, everybody else in Congress said yes. One person said no to release the entirety of the Epstein files. But Donald Trump doesn't want it released. So they play bullshit games. But now they're mad about, they want to bring Joe Biden back up and the pardons he issued. Now, when they are looking into these pardons, even during Donald Trump's first term, there were reports that there was a pay-to-play scheme going on when it came to Donald Trump and his pardons. Okay, it was like $1 or $2 million a pardon, and they were tracked through Rudy Giuliani, or at least that was part of it. And they were tied to people donating big money to Donald Trump, and he would give pardons, or at least that was the rumor. Now, they never actually proved that anything was going on. There were no charges from that I'm aware of. But it had been things that were talked about, and now finally Congress is looking into some of the people Donald Trump has pardoned. Is it going to matter? No, because the pardon power is absolute. Those pardons are good. As far as I know, there is no process to overturn those pardons. The only thing that could happen from it, depending on how those pardons are worded, and if there was a pay-to-play scheme, they could face new charges from those actions. And then, of course, we'd have to deal with the potential for Donald Trump to pardon them again. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if they attempt to do something after Democrats take control again. I think they are going to take control in 2028. Well, 2026, I think they get the House and possibly the Senate. We've been talking about that. But by 28, I think the Democrats have the control of Congress, and I think they have the presidency. And they may try to issue changes to how presidential pardons work. And the main way they would have to do that is through a constitutional amendment. Now, that is a high bar. And I think one of the things that is going to come out from this administration, this deranged Trump administration that we are dealing with, where they're doing all kinds of things, is I think they would end up getting maybe an amendment to limit presidential authority, change some of the presidential powers, maybe limit who can become president, because our founding fathers never expected that we would ever, ever consider nominating even a felon. But here we are. I don't want to touch on that one yet. Well, I was just speaking of the midterms. Tennessee has approved a new voting map. It is a GOP drawn map. Drew out the only Democratic seat in the state. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee on Thursday signed into law a new GOP-friendly House map that carves up the state's only black majority district and threatens the lone Democrat in the state's 9-member delegation. Tennessee House and Senate approved a new map earlier Thursday after first voting to repeal the state's 56-year prohibition on mid-decade redistricting, a necessary step before lawmakers could move forward with the process. Lee signed both bills into law shortly thereafter, along with other legislation the General Assembly passed to accommodate the election changes. The new map splits Representative Steve Cohen's Memphis-based 9th Congressional District, the state's only majority black district, into 3 congressional districts, while further dividing Nashville into 5. The House passed the map in a 64-25 vote, with 3 Republicans abstaining. The Senate later passed the measure 25-5 along party lines. Governor had called this week's special session amid Donald Trump's renewed push for Republican-led states to move forward with mid-decade redistricting ahead of the November midterms. Trump and Republicans scored a victory last week when the Supreme Court declared Louisiana's congressional map an illegal gerrymander and ordered the states to redraw its lines, putting at least one of the state's 2 Democratic seats in jeopardy. After the Supreme Court decision, Trump posted on Truth Social that he had a very good conversation with Tennessee's governor, wherein he stated that he would work hard to correct the unconstitutional flaw in the congressional map of the great state of Tennessee. A day later, Lee called a special session to review the map. State lawmakers convened Tuesday, held committee hearings on Wednesday to consider the maps and related legislation. And they heard testimony from congressional Democrat, or Georgia Democrat rather, Stacey Abrams. Very disappointed. She doesn't actually have a seat anywhere in politics. She's a very influential Democrat. She's a powerhouse. Really should be somewhere in politics doing something. Representative Cohen argued Wednesday that having a Democratic congressman has benefited Tennessee, pointing out that federal funding he secured during the Biden administration paid for a bridge over the Mississippi River. He also emphasized his longstanding ties to the district and commitment to his constituents. We're giving up the value of Tennessee and the power of the state of Tennessee for one man who is president of the United States for 2 more years, and maybe a little bit for the governor who's going to be governor for less than a year, Cohen told the committee. The whole thing here, they had to repeal a 56-year ban on mid-decade redistricting to accomplish what they're doing. And it only worked because they have the state gerrymandered to the point where they're always in power. Now, this could backfire. It's called dummy mandering. You move your voters around trying to take a district where, say, you would normally win by 60%, now you're going to win it by 52%, and move those voters into another district and hope that if you move enough pieces around, you win that last district. Okay? If voter turnout is high enough, it's not going to fucking matter. It's not going to matter. And what this can do, if people are paying attention, and if you're in Tennessee, I hope you are paying attention, that they had to change a 56-year-old law. Now, that still shocks me. When I think of things that are 56 years old, I don't think of something from the 1970s anymore. I still think 56 years old, we're talking about something from the 40s or 50s, and well, that's not the case anymore. Downside of getting older, I guess. But anyway, they had to change a 56-year-old law that was perfectly fine and prevented mid-decade redistricting. They had to change the rules in order to win. That's like sitting down to play chess with somebody who doesn't know how any of the pieces move, and they want to insist that everything moves however they decide in that particular moment because, well, I want to win. This is going to come back to bite them, okay? I don't quite know the exact math. I've seen a couple creators talking about it. There are certain states that if the Democrats redraw the districts right in those several states, it is entirely possible that the Democrats end up taking 218 seats straight out, despite whatever the Republicans do. That they would always have control of at least the House of Representatives. And if this is the game the Republicans want to play, maybe the Democrats should go down that route. But the problem is Democrats typically, they like to go high. That was the old adage under Michelle Obama. And I like Michelle Obama. But she always said, well, when they go low, we go high. That doesn't work. When they go low, we go lower. We need to go after them with the same zeal they're going after us. Realistically, let's be honest. They want to redraw these state maps. You know, there's a reason why we redraw the state maps after the census. And that's because they look at population, they figure out where population moved. It was after the 2020 census that Montana actually picked up a second congressional seat. And I think it was during the 2024 presidential race is when I learned that they had a second congressional seat. I was shocked. I didn't know that they were worth 4 electoral votes. They'd always been worth 3. I remember being a kid. I didn't quite understand it because I don't remember what year it was. I think it must have been after the 90 census. I think it was 90, maybe it was 2000. One of the two that they redistricted out Iowa. Iowa went from having 5 congressional seats to 4. We lost one. And I remember when it was being talked about, I wasn't quite into politics, not nearly to where I am today. But it happens, right? We do that based on population, and then every state redraws their maps, and typically we go with it from there. But Republicans want to redraw mid-decade to change the playing field. Like I said, they want to redraw the rules to make it better in their favor for no other reason than to please the ego of Donald Trump and to focus on everything, right? He's so worried and so terrified of losing the midterms that they're doing all of this. And I don't think it's going to matter. I've been saying that I think the Democrats could take the House by 30 to 50 seats, if not more. Why? Because everything fucking sucks. Gas is high. We're in the middle of a conflict with Iran. There's no way out. We've got Republicans, as I talked about, I think it was, the other day, they now want us to pay for the ballroom that Donald Trump insisted was going to be privately funded. Donald Trump making money hand over fist, just showing off, doing whatever he wants, not caring that he's violating the law on a daily basis. And Republicans are showing us who they are. And I just don't think they've done enough to earn people's votes. They haven't. They're going to get the hardcore MAGA base. They're going to get the hardcore Republican voters, sure. But I don't think they're going to get just anybody's vote. I think they're going to have to fight like hell to get the votes they do get and go from there. All right. I mentioned the war in Iran. House Republican introduces bill that includes strict limits on Iran war. GOP Representative Tom Barrett of Michigan introduced a bill on Thursday that would require President Trump to wind down the Iran war by the end of July. It would impose limits on the scope of the ongoing military campaign. Barrett, a 22-year-old Army veteran who was deployed to Iraq and Kuwait, introduced the authorization for use of military force, but the House is on recess until May 11th. Under his authorization, if this passes, but again, the House is on recess, so this isn't going to be voted on till at least the 11th, probably longer. The 11th would be the Monday after Mother's Day. But military can take action to successfully demolish, degrade, or defeat Iran's nuclear weapon program, address imminent threats to U.S. forces or facilities, enforce a blockade of Iranian ports, which the Navy is already doing, and ensure safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz for American and allied ships along with any other vessels that Trump deems appropriate. It sounds like they're just giving him carte blanche to do what he wants. But it does bar the U.S. forces from conducting sustained ground combat operations, occupying, seizing, or holding Iranian territory, engaging in nation building or similar measures in the Middle Eastern countries. Two things have been very have been clear from the very beginning. Iran cannot be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and the United States of America cannot be dragged into another endless war, he said Thursday. This is Barrett, the representative who introduced this legislation. The commander in chief has the sole authority to lead our troops in wartime, but I've lost too many friends on the battlefield to allow that to happen without Congress exercising its constitutional role to clearly define the mission with safeguards and a deadline. If we don't learn from our foreign policies failures of the past, we are bound to repeat them. Now, he had replaced Democratic Senator Alyssa Slotkin, representing the Wolverine State's 7th Congressional District via a narrow victory over Democrat Curtis Hurdle in 2024. His race is being listed by Cook Political as a toss-up. This is remarkable, and this again comes from The Hill. The move is remarkable since virtually all Republicans have stood behind Trump throughout the Iran war, arguing the conflict was justified in the name of national security. It also demonstrates, though, that patience on Capitol Hill is wearing thin, even among Trump's GOP allies, in the face of a military stalemate that has led to rising gas prices and heightened fears of another drawn-out conflict in the Middle East, one of the things Trump had campaigned against. Now, his 60-day deadline has passed. Some Republicans are pushing for this, saying they support the war effort, but want Congress to have a voice directing it. In the Senate, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska is drafting a similar resolution. Others, like Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, are supporting War Powers resolution that would force Trump to terminate all military operations until an authorization for military force is adopted. Democrats have accused Trump of launching a war without just cause, have supported the War Powers resolutions to end the conflict, but they appear much less likely to back an authorization for military force enabling further operations because they're saying there's no evidence that Iran posed an imminent threat. So we're still at a stalemate, but the big thing and the big takeaway from this article is that Republicans are breaking from Donald Trump slightly. And that is very telling, that they are, willing to, at least some of them are introducing measures to force an end to the Iran stalemate, maybe authorize the use of military force a little more with a strict deadline. Now, this one said, what was it, July 11th? I mean, that's not that far out. That's about another 60 days. Now, gas prices would go through the roof if he was authorized to use more force. But that would also take away some of the Democrats' complaints, is that Congress did give him the authorization to do it. Donald Trump wouldn't just be doing it on his own. And that's a key difference. But see, Donald Trump doesn't care about the difference, right? He doesn't care about any of that. He only cares about doing what he wants to do. And right now, he's focused on looking like the tough guy with Iran. All right. Southern Poverty Law Center has pled not guilty into a fraud case brought by the Trump administration. A leader for the Southern Poverty Law Center on Thursday pled not guilty on behalf of the civil rights group amid an effort by the Justice Department to charge it with fraud. The administration is accusing them of defrauding its donors by using a now defunct informant program to funnel money into extremist groups they were spying on. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center has denied the claim, saying the indictment doesn't support an accusation, largely relayed during a press conference. Brian Fair, the group's interim president and CEO, said in a statement, the charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center are provably wrong. They are based on inaccurate facts and a misapplication of law. Our informant program was successful in accomplishing its purposes. Threats and attacks were prevented, criminal activity was stopped, and information was gathered to dismantle the efforts of hate and extremist groups. There is no question that the information the Southern Poverty Law Center shared with law enforcement saved lives. The SPLC will continue to fight white supremacy and various forms of injustice in our mission to build a democracy where we can all live and thrive. We will continue that mission no matter what. Now, the indictment says the group defrauded its donors by failing to alert them their money was being used to fund the leaders and organizers of racist groups. However, the indictment alleges only one instance in which money from an informant reached other group members, and it does not provide any further details. This is typical Donald Trump and his bullshit. They dangle it out there, make it sound all good. This type of indictment. Yeah, you can get it. Can you get a conviction at trial? Probably not. But all they're trying to do is get the narrative out there about the Southern Poverty Law Center. Because if this information is out in the public this whole time, people are going to be less likely to donate. They're going to be less likely to believe things that come out of it, things like that. And it's typical with what Donald Trump does and says because he doesn't have to prove it. This just makes it seem like Donald Trump is doing something. And why? Why are they trying to prove that the Southern Poverty Law Center is funding white supremacist groups? You know, when they are a group that goes after and tries to dismantle and work with law enforcement to get rid of white supremacist groups? Is it because they actually want to promote those groups? I don't know. Okay, what else do I got here? Okay, before I get into my last story, I want to cover this other one real quick. Donald Trump was asked about $1,000 World Cup tickets. President Trump says he was unaware of the high cost of attendance for World Cup soccer matches taking place in the United States next month. Trump told the New York Post, "I did not know that number when he was told tickets to some matches were going for upward of $1,000 a piece." He said, "I would certainly like to be there, but I wouldn't pay it either, to be honest with you." One of the few things I would actually agree on Donald Trump with. I wouldn't pay $1,000 for a ticket to any sporting event. I'm not a soccer fan, but I don't care. $1,000 a ticket's a little high. Trump says, "I haven't seen that, but I would have to take a look at it." Now he probably won't because of his dementia-ridden brain. He's probably going to forget about it soon. Fans across the world have expressed outrage in recent weeks over ticket prices, which are some of the highest in the international tournament's history. FIFA has defended its ticket distribution method, saying each host nation can define its eligibility criteria and application process. They are requested to ensure these tickets are specifically allocated to loyal fans who are closely connected to their national teams. FIFA's governing body said. Trump, a close ally of FIFA President Gianni Infantino, sought to promote the tournament's arrival in the U.S., a major victory for his administration. Let's see. Trump told the Post, "If people from Queens and Brooklyn and all the people that love Donald Trump can't go, I would be disappointed. But, at the same time, it's an amazing success," Trump told the Post. "I would love to be able to have people that voted for me be able to go." Here's the thing. I don't think very many people who voted for Donald Trump would be able to go because a lot of them don't have money. Trump continued, "I know it's been extremely successful, setting every record in the book. They've never had anything like it." Well, that's one of the things with Donald Trump. Everything Donald Trump has always never seen anything like it. Never seen it before. It's all record setting. It's all great, right? But most of Donald Trump supporters wouldn't have the money to go watch the FIFA World Cup. Why? Because he's grifted it all from them. At every turn, phones, shoes, shirts, hats, NFTs, trading cards, Trump coin. If he can think of it and think of a way to merchandise it, they're going to pay it. Trump Bibles is another one. Every time he turns around, he's got a new way of getting another $100 from these supporters. And even though he's ineligible to ever run for president again, he's constantly sending out fundraising emails. For what? Because he can, and they'll pay it. Now, I don't know how many Trump supporters actually watch FIFA and watch soccer, or as it's called in the rest of the world, football. But the fact that he's taken so much money away from them and lined his own pockets with it, and he says he wants his supporters to be able to pay the ticket price, or he'd be disappointed if they couldn't. Does that mean he's going to be disappointed in himself for them not being able to pay it? I don't know. Now, the last story, this is probably going to take up the rest of the show, that I wanted to cover, is something that I'll admit I don't know a lot about. I'm going to be reading from 3 different articles, again from The Hill, about, and that is this outbreak of hantavirus from a cruise ship. Now, let's see. An outbreak of hantavirus aboard a Dutch cruise ship in the Atlantic Ocean has been raising concerns about the virus among members of the public that are afraid of another global pandemic. At least 3 passengers who were aboard the MV Honduras have died. 5 other people have been sickened after showing symptoms of the hantavirus. The ship's operator, Oceanwide Expeditions, said no symptomatic individuals remain on board. Some passengers, including 6 Americans, disembarked when the cruise stopped at St. Helena, a remote island in the South Atlantic, according to the ship's operator, before it recognized there was a viral outbreak happening. Stories of people trapped on a cruise ship with a deadly disease circulating are bringing back memories of the early days of COVID-19, but public health officials say that the threat to the general public remains low. Here's what to know. Person-to-person transmission is rare. Most forms of hantavirus spread through contact with the feces, urine, and saliva of infected rodents or rats. The virus strain found among cruise ship passengers was confirmed as Andes virus, endemic to South America, which is where the ship departed from. Rodents that carry Andes virus have not been found in the United States, though there have been imported cases. There were 26 hantavirus cases in 2023, with the most recent year available. That was the most recent year with available data, according to the CDC. The agency has counted a total of 890 cases in the country since it began tracking it in 1993. Andes virus is the only known type of hantavirus that can spread from person to person. Virus has a relatively high fatality rate, though, between 20 and 40%. According to health experts, transmission between people is associated with prolonged close contact, such as among members of the same household sharing a bed, intimate partners, and medical providers. Most hantavirus do not spread easily between humans. In fact, there is very little known human-to-human transmission. There's a lot. Let's see. Maria Van Kerkhove, acting director of the World Health Organization's Department of Epidemic and Pandemic Threat Management, said this is not COVID, this is not influenza, it spreads differently. Experts are not worried about another pandemic. Now, let's see. Right, as of right now, there is no treatment and no vaccine. When infections are identified, the standard treatment is supportive and intensive care to keep the patient alive until they can recover. Basically, as of right now, the only treatment is to get better on your own. They are still looking into vaccines and develop treatments. Moderna has a potential candidate for the vaccine, but research is still in the very early stages. Now, as of recording this, in the U.S., at least 4 states are monitoring residents who are on board the ship: Arizona, Virginia, California, and Georgia. Arizona said this individual is not symptomatic and is being monitored by public health. Georgia said it is monitoring 2 residents. They are in good health and show no signs of infection. California Department of Public Health says it's been notified by the CDC of California residents who were on board the cruise ship but did not disclose how many, that they are coordinating with local health officials as needed and monitoring returning travelers. So they are looking into it, and I know people are worried. Now, let's see. I had another couple articles on it. This might be more of the same information. Yeah. Maria Van Kerkhove said during a press conference, as I said, that this is not COVID. It spreads differently. There are different precautions that they are taking. She addressed a similar question about how COVID began with very few cases before spreading to a global pandemic. She told the reporter that COVID-19 was a novel coronavirus, while the hantavirus, they've been around for quite a while. I don't want to be unequivocal here. This is not SARS-CoV-2. This is not the start of a COVID pandemic. Later adding that the hantavirus spreads differently and some people don't transmit between people at all. Let's see. Hantavirus is not spread by people without symptoms. Transmission requires very close contact, and the risk to the American public safety is very low. Try to see who this is here. Acting Director of the CDC, Dr. J. Bhattacharya, and I probably butchered that name, and I apologize for that. Says the CDC has the world's leading experts on hantavirus and leading its technical expertise when coordinating with interagency partners, state health officials, and international authorities in response and repatriation planning. So it sounds like, again, the CDC is not worried about it turning into a global pandemic. Now, so the WHO is saying this is not the beginning of another pandemic. Maria Van Kerkhove, again, head of the who is one of the World Health Organization's top epidemic experts, says this is not the next COVID, but it is a serious infectious disease. Most people will never be exposed to this. Still, cases do appear in the U.S. The CDC has begun tracking the virus after a 1993 outbreak in the Four Corners region, which is where Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah meet. Though in 2023, the most recent data year available, CDC had confirmed nearly 900 through 2023, not in 2023. They had found 200 or 900 cases total. Almost half of them were in the Four Corners region and in California. At least 10 states have never reported a single case. And as it says, it is mostly have been reported through contact with rodents or their urine or feces. California officials specifically call out deer mice. Uh, let's see. In a study published last year, researchers said they found more than 30 species of rodents and small mammals that carry hantavirus. This does not include only rats and mice, but squirrels, chipmunks, and gophers. Best way to avoid the germ is to minimize contacts with rodents and their droppings. Use protective gloves and bleach for solution for cleaning up of rodent droppings. Uh, and use or and do not sweep or vacuum particulates if you do have contact with rat droppings and stuff, because that can get it airborne. Um, so people are worried that this is going to be the start of another global pandemic. I'm not so worried at this point. Now, maybe I will be proven yet that I'm wrong. That wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong, but I'm not worried about this turning into another global pandemic because it doesn't sound like it is anywhere the same. It sounds scary. New virus, or this isn't even a new virus, but a virus we haven't really heard about. Most people had probably never heard of hantavirus. Um, so it sounds scary, and you hear the high mortality rate, way higher than COVID. No, no treatment, no vaccine. People get scared. I get that. Now, there are some things that make us go, what's going to happen here? First of all, the CDC and this administration basically come out and, like they did with COVID, we got it under control. It's not a big deal. Don't panic. And we saw how that played out. Apparently, there is also, or was also, a team, and let me look this up here. I want to make sure I'm giving you the correct information. All right. I paused it to look this article up, and I don't know how long I had been sitting here talking to the camera with the recording paused. So I've been talking to myself for a little bit. Anyway, let's get back at it. Um, Health and Human Services have laid off all full-time cruise ship health inspectors. This comes from HuffPost. Um, Basically, a federal team tasked with preventing and investigating and responding to public health illnesses on cruise ships has been slashed. They laid off all full-time employees. Um, Now, part of their budget does come from the CDC, but a lot of it comes from fees that these ship owners and shipping lines and things have to pay. But the reason of the budget slash came because Donald Trump wants to trim $1.8 billion from the government. And our Health and Human Services Secretary R.F. Kennedy Jr. announced last month, so this is a month old, because I found this article was dated in April, so this would be for March, that they were going to lay off approximately 10,000 full-time employees. That's the problem here. They lay these people off when they have no idea what their job actually is. Now, I'm not worried that this is going to become the next pandemic. It looks bad. It sounds bad. I can see where people are going to get sensationalized and scared. I understand that. And those fears are perfectly valid. But we're not going to go through it again. Now, if something does happen and this becomes worse, we already know what the playbook is going to be. Donald Trump is going to ignore health experts. He's going to try to downplay it. He already has downplayed it himself, but his administration has said it's not a big deal. And I tend to agree because the experts right now are saying not to panic. Until they start saying to panic, I'm not going to. Okay. But then if we do decide to shut down the country, and I'm not saying we're going to, I don't know that it's going to get that bad. And right now, the experts are saying it's not going to get that bad. He's not going to shut it down long enough. And a certain group of this country is going to show once again that they don't care for their fellow man. We know how the Republicans are going to act if we would have to deal with this again. Now, part of the problem here is that during the Obama administration, we did have a pandemic response team, a team of certified experts on viruses, illness transmission, all of it. And what happened? They all got fired during Donald Trump's first administration. They weren't reinstated under Biden. I wish they would have been. To my knowledge, they were not. And I think that is one of the few things I would say Joe Biden could have done better on. But Donald Trump turned around. He fired them all. He said, well, we don't pay people to sit around and do nothing. Because he didn't understand what they were actually doing. He really thought that this team of infectious disease experts were just sitting in a room playing cards with each other the whole time, doing nothing. Because he doesn't understand. He's got no natural curiosity. He refuses to look into anything. He refuses to learn. And I guarantee you, somebody around him in his first administration told him that that's what they do. So we aren't in the best of shape, but I don't think we have to start panic buying yet. Do not go out and make a run on your local grocery store. Don't go buy up all the toilet paper and sanitizer and all of that just yet. If you want to stock up on a little bit more, I would understand. It would always be beneficial to keep things like disinfectant and bleach and those kind of things around for cleaning purposes anyway. But I'm not worried about this becoming a big global pandemic just yet. Okay. It's contained enough. I know people are freaking out, but we're nowhere near to the level of what it was during COVID. And the experts are saying that they've known about this illness since the 90s. Even though there's no treatment, they know how it transmits, they know how it moves, and it's not similar to COVID. The difference with COVID is that it was rapidly spreading and everything else. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Analytical Iowan Podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will be back again tomorrow.
That was Eric. That does it for our analysis today. If you appreciated us cutting through the noise to get to the critical context, please make sure you're subscribed to the Analytical Iowan Podcast on Spotify and YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening.